Is that Salamangreat actually making ripples out here in what was expected to be a purely based format? Don't beg the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. We're going to be looking at the Kinta Championship today. And for this breakdown, you are going to be seeing, that is right, 3 purely decks in the overall top representation of this, which means essentially every team had a purely on it, which is kind of interesting. One team actually just decided that they wanted to load 2 purely players up on it instead of diversifying. I mean, when it comes to these 3v3s, players choose to try to outsmart their opponents as much as possible team composition, so that becomes an entirely different mind game. We also had 2 tier elements on top cut. I'm telling you, man, this deck is barely holding itself together right now. We had 2 synchro decks in top cut. You're going to get the chance to see, you know, all of these synchro outlets and how they're all going to filter together to bring this deck to its best overall potential. We also had a Salamangreat deck in top cut. Salad's still doing some things out here. I think this is the first Salad deck on record that I have seen that has actually done remotely anything. Super Heavy Samurai also holding on here and still showcasing that, you know, in terms of how this deck is like held together at this point in time, it is doing very well. We also had Metagame here. Metagame has not had a super crazy showing, but I mean, they just got a huge round of support for them, and those power-ups were actually pretty cool to see what more we could actually add into the deck here. And we also had Flaunderies. Now, I mean, ever since we lost the barrier statue, this deck has kind of moved down to the rogue category at this stage, though it still does, you know, fly around and annoy opponents. It still is one of those top contenders that you do got to be aware of, because if you're playing rogue one day and you just show up and you're like, oh, and you lose to end pen, not much you can do. But overall, for top cut representation, I think this feels like a decent snapshot into overall how the metagame feels like it's going at this point. All right, we're going to pass on over so you can take a look at some of these deck lists. We actually have Salamangreat here on the winning team, and I'm still very shocked about this, to see that this was the successful variant that got the chance to shine out here. I do see that we are playing the Rage and the Roar, as per, you know, usual stuff. We are playing a Math Mech package in here. Yes, the strategy of including additional Cyberse monsters to take advantage of our amazing typing. To be perfectly honest with you, I mean, for the rest of this deck, everything looks to be, I would say, pretty straightforward here, honestly. Heralds and stuff are going to give you more defensive options. Yeah, this deck looks like it is really designed to take down the purely menace. Speaking of purely, their teammate here, playing the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation good stuff build, where, you know, ditching a Rainbow Bridge of Salvation off of your powerful umpteen purely spell cards to banish to go toggle for your field spell, get a Cobalt. Congratulations, you now have discard fodder in the form of the Cobalt. We're literally off to the races at this point. One interesting tech choice that this build is playing, though, see, we are playing a Tri-Heart down here in the extra deck. That's kind of interesting, just to kind of see what else that you can kind of revolutionize with for this deck. So that's very, very interesting. And then their teammate out here playing Cyberstein Super Heavy Samurai, laugh your opponent all the way to the bank, the deck. As you can see, this deck is playing Scythe still. The fact that this deck has as many defensive options as it actually does, and it's able to get away with, you know, the stronger builds here, I think is actually pretty impressive at the end of the day. It's going to come down to a lot of your deck building choices, you know, coming to adapt this to the TCG here. Also, shout out to Epsilon down there, being an absolutely, actually, whichever one that is. I believe that's the Spell Negator overall. So, definitely something to see. Man, this is adorable. As we move on to our next team here, we have Labyrinth here. Yes. The Temple of the King's special, I see. The ability to, you know, pull off your first turn virus, laugh at your opponent, or, you know, a big welcome, or something like that. Pretty good. I also see they put the little fusion down there for, what is it, the new illusionist archetype. That's kind of cute. Honestly, the fact we're back to the one field spell, I think is fine. A lot of people are kind of starting to head away from that, but it is definitely nice. And of course, double Chaos Angel being one of the things that's going to make this deck into an absolute monster. Next up is Metagame. So this is kind of what you're expecting here. come TCG developments where you will see a Hero Lives Turbo effectively drop out the Prisma. Congratulations, you can effectively start combo at that stage. I do see the fact that we are playing the Ultimaya Tzolk'in Crimson Dragon Superpower Turbo Fusion in here, which is kind of cute, actually. I kind of like that. That's not something that I thought we would see in here, but I feel like that is a very welcome addition to this deck. That's one more power card that I guess you can stop by along the way. Pointer of the Red Lotus seeing a lot more side deck play down here as well. Next up here we have Flanderies. Double Rise of the Mega Monarch and only one M-Pen are the first noticeable things about this list. We are playing double Pot of Prosperity, triple Pot of good old Filtering, triple Extrav as well. Wow, they're really bulking down here. And then we are main decking the one Herald of the Abyss. I see that we have Numbers of Veil shenanigans going on in the extra deck, so you can make Rongar and Mini. That's one of the things that makes this deck so stupid. It's just that you can cheese out Numbers of Veil and then proceed to laugh at your opponent. I wish we could actually make some sort of use for this. It would definitely make things a lot better. Next up here we have Tier Laments. Okay. So good old standard tier here, driving us on home a little bit here. Like I said previously, I think this deck is very much held together by the glue that is Chaos Ruler. If you kind of strip that away, this deck kind of falls into nothingness. But it remains a very strong competitor out here, even in its current form, just strictly because of, the filtering options that you can get. Even with the much harsher restrictions that this deck has going for it, it still prevails at the end of the day. So, incredibly good stuff. I do see that we are playing Ghost Reaper as well, as a little bit of a tech choice to kind of help out with the format. Next up is Purely. Now, this build does not want to deal with the mirror match. This duelist was so prepared for things that he was like, we're going to go ahead and we're going to main deck triple Santa Claus because I don't want to deal with any of the BS that is wandering around here. I perfectly understand that. Being able to essentially make a zoo set well and then, have it act as a detour against the opponent is really good. And you do see that we are only playing one of the new little Nora in here. That little Nora is going to help kind of alleviate a lot of the stress that you're going to see. I mean, it's such a good card, man. I see we are playing an Akashic Magician in here. That's kind of interesting. You don't really see that all that much. I don't see other tech choices, but okay. Next up is our other Purely list. Wow. We were really going to town on these Pureleys. Now, this one is a Sky Striker variation, actually playing a double engage and a Hornet drones. Consider maybe an Eagle Booster or something, but that's an interesting tech choice. Also, Widow Anchor's in here for defensive options as well. Yeah, take your opponent's stuff. Imagine if you play against the Purely player and they start setting up and you just activate Widow Anchor, take their monster, and, they're kind of in a dead spot at that point in time, especially if you can cut them off correctly. I feel like that just kind of puts you into a very, very strong position. Next up here, our fourth place team is Synchro Time. Okay, we are playing the little angel guy in here as well. So this is going to be standard junk, speeder, turbo shenanigans. But I see that we are playing the Brave package in here to allow us easier time to, combo up. Because, Revolution Synchron plus a level 7 token is always going to be incredibly good. Also, Legal Night Interruptions, if need be, for the other half. You have a lot of cool things to do with this deck. If you were playing Ancient Fairy Dragon, which this build is not, Revolution plus, that is essentially off to the races. Our other Synchro build here also is playing Super Heavy Samurai cards. So this is going to be what you would consider more of the, go-to approach here. We use the Super Heavy Samurai cards to, be the base engine. And then you use things like Assault Synchron and other stepping stones to set up and make your best results possible for this deck. And of course, being able to have Big Power Tool Dragon as a pulling up option is actually pretty cool. Looking at the rest of this, I don't see anything too out of ordinary. This feels very, very, very straightforward. And the last we actually have for you here is another Tier Elements deck. Wow, this deck just does not want to stop. This build's actually playing double Chicken Game, which is kind of hilarious. And of course, you do see the fact we have the Shadal package in here. Everything about this is pretty standard. I guess maybe triple Mothman, double Destroyer might be a little bit out of left field. We're also not playing any Revolution Synchrons. But I think that's fine. Like, this should get you to where you need to be in terms of deck building as well. Man, I really wish we had Chaos Ruler just to be able to play this build. Well, that is everything that we have out of the event. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.